No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glory of Golden State Gaming. I'm your host, Swamp Swimmer, and with me, as always, the Zuckerberg to my Musk, Vespacian. Is that?
Can't wait for the cage match. That's awesome.
Is that the right comparison? Am I more of a Zuckerberg? I can't tell. I don't know.
I'm not sure that anybody wins in that comparison.
So,
good to see you, man. How you doing?
Good to see you. Completely off-topic discussion. My wonderful wife was out of town last weekend, and I had a craving to go to a very nice sushi dinner. Like I love sushi. Sushi's great. I'm like, there's a sushi restaurant very close to us that I enjoy very much. And I wanted to ask your opinion. What are your thoughts on going out to a nice fancy dinner in a party of one? Dining by yourself. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think outside of big cities, or at least New York, it's kind of a weird thing to do. It's like, what is that one person doing out there having a nice dinner by themselves in a restaurant? But in New York, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's ubiquitous, or it's not like common, but it happens every once in a while. It's not like a bad thing. It's just like some people go out, and I literally went to the sushi restaurant and brought, shout out the Ninth Age novel that came out, Evocation of Souls. I'm reading through that right now.
So good. It's so good.
And I read Evocation of Souls while having a sushi dinner by myself with a bunch of people around me. What are your thoughts on that?
Heaven.
I felt a little weird doing it, being like a party of one out of the restaurant, but also I'm like, this is kind of wonderful.
So a couple of thoughts. I used to work in the restaurant industry, so I have some formal and informal thoughts. Sushi is a great option because you can sit at the sushi bar. Sushi bar is in my opinion the best way to experience sushi, and it's optimal for a party of one. I think that there has to be that has to be an okay thing. I mean, I traveled or used to travel a lot for business, and going out to eat by myself is a pretty typical part of that, sort of business travel experience. So I think you kind of have to, be able to and facilitated to do that, because it's a relevant part of the demographic of people who need to go out to eat. So
True.
I think it's fine. Bringing a book is a great way to keep yourself entertained, and all that. So yeah.
I've definitely noticed here in New York, specifically here in New York, like single diner out in a very nice fancy restaurant is not that unheard of a thing. But I think outside of New York, it is maybe a weird. I didn't see it very often, and I just partaked in it this weekend, and I'm like, wow, this was nice. I highly recommend anyone else who has the opportunity to go to a fine dining experience by yourself, take the leap.
Are you enjoying the book?
Yes, I am enjoying it very much. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I'm a slow reader. When I'm done with it, I will have a video. I'm gonna do a review, 100%. That's coming around the corner, but I gotta finish the book first, of course.
I read it like a month ago. I loved it, and I would be an enthusiastic participant in the review if we can figure that out.
All right, folks.
I know you just like to get me for the battle reports, but
I'm down totally. We should totally do that. Keep your eyes peeled for a book review coming up. Evocation of Souls.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it. But anyway, we are on to Scrimmage number 2. Practice scrimmages for the ETC 2023. Let's see here. First scrimmage, USA played against England. What was the overall result, by the way?
I forget. I think
it's not that important. Just wondering.
I think it was a win to us, but not a cap. But to be honest with you, this was more about practice than like really following the results. I think it was close. Let's just put it that way.
Let's see here. Let's jump to the battle report. But you guys in the second scrimmage were against, what was it, Germany? I can't remember.
Germany. Yeah.
And you got paired into Stefan.
Which, if those of you who were following the ETC hype, if you caught Furian's pre-ETC video of the headbutting baptism, whatever
cartoon. It was a very interesting video. Thank you, Furian. I'd love to come on the show and tell us what you were thinking.
Was absolutely off the charts. Anyway, so Germany certainly, I think amongst the community, Germany was seen coming in as a quite strong team with arguably two of the best players in the world, with Thomas and Furian on it. So I think I caveated in the last video, Furian was not able to play because he was playing and winning, as it turned out, the ESC. But otherwise it was scrimmage against Team Germany with a replacement for Furian.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'll go into the pairing. Slight quick preview. You got paired into Staffen. I can't do it with the German names. Stefan.
I think it was Stefan. Yeah.
And you got paired into some Vermin Swarm. Well, interesting list. You said this is kind of, you built a list a little bit roughly around counteracting Vermin Swarm. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
If you're interested in Vespacian's list, please click the link right above my head. It'll take you to the Scrimmage 1 video. We'll go over his ETC list in a little more detail. But let's talk about Stefan's list. So we got...
Yeah.
You go. Do you want me to read through it, or do you want us to talk about it?
Go ahead.
Swarm Priest on the Whispering Bell, Adept on Thaumaturgy, Rod of Battle, Holy Triumvirate, the Pantheon. A Ruinous Dictator General on Occultism, Avatar of Favana. House Prefect Pistol, Cowl of Apostate, the Orator's Toga. He's a Scorched Alchemist. And another Prefect, Giselle, Ranger's Boots, Radichet Technocrat. 3 big blocks of Virgin Legionnaires, the 2 bigger ones with spears. The smaller one I think is just hand weapon shields. The bigger ones are Legion standard, and the lower one Stalker standard. Big block of 45 black for veterans. Let's see here with the Sacred Aquila? 6 brutes.
Yeah, I think that means they're the battle focus. Yeah, battle focus. They lose some guys. Yeah.
6 brutes, 2x6 Giselles, 2 Moss rifles, which are the cannons, some Shadowfur Stalkers, and 2 Dreadmill chariots. So obviously shooty. That's a lot of Giselles. 12.
And 2 cannons. Yeah. So the this was a good, we wanted to test this match out because I had this rated as a yellow, and we were hoping that this would be, we might catch a misrating because this, on the surface I have a lot of expensive single models, and with an occultism blaster and lots of shooting, you might think that a list like this would see mine and see it as a green, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, was my list was built not necessarily expecting a lot of dictators. So in the lead up to list submission, there were not a ton of these big unstable dictator lists. It was much more focused on the kind of assassin and Doomblade sort of setup with a senator, right? Yep. So this, I would say, this is kind of a lower yellow rating, I would say, because that dictator is really hard for me to get a hold of. Occultism doesn't need line of sight, so he just hides behind an impassable and fires, like Graves Calls and stuff like that at my stuff all in. So he's a bit of a pain in the butt to deal with. The Unstable and Fearless is also a pain in the butt to deal with. it really means you need to kill them to the last rat, to get through them.
Yeah, because you don't have a lot
that
of
being
static.
said,
You don't have a lot of static combat res to help you chew through those legionnaires.
yeah, to break their steadfast. Yeah, absolutely. So that being said, I felt like I could, do things with the Giselles and the Moss rifles, and all of that. So, anyways, it had rated as a yellow, and we were hoping to kind of prove out that point of it not being a bad match, essentially.
Okay. So I think this first picture is the actual pairings. Let's zoom in here. First of all, these cards are fantastic that were made.
Yeah, so this was a collaboration. You may have mentioned it, but Mike, guy on our team, used an AI-generated art program to create. I think the prompt we used was like the fantasy race, right? So like ogre, elf, or whatever, and Miami Vice and mullet were some of the main prompts that was the theme that we came up with. So if you look at it through that lens, you can get a picture. And so you see mine over there on the left hand side, with the sort of sophisticated elf with the
but he's got the Miami Vice suit with the rolled up sleeves and everything. I love it.
That's right. Yeah. I thought these came out great, and I have, forever onward, my, if I'm putting out my army for, painting ratings and things like that, that's going to be my name placard on my display board. So
awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Do you remember many details about the pairing process? Wins, fails?
No, keep in mind with the scrimmages, we weren't necessarily pushing to like win the round, but more test the matchups.
Yeah.
So like, for example, where was one? Right. I know we were interested in testing that Warriors matchup for Chris, for example. They were bringing that list that there was a couple of the archetype out there of like double wretched ones and like 40 sloth knights was like a kind of a common archetype for Warriors, and so we wanted to test that one out. And then one or two other things. I think maybe we wanted to try the Sylvans against the SA, I can't remember exactly, but long story short, we were mainly trying to test like kind of yellow and orange matchups, and so we didn't necessarily pair ourselves into like a win, I guess I would say.
Gotcha. All right, so this first image is deployment.
Yeah. So I think he won first turn, if I recall correctly, and so he, his deployment across the top. He's got the Dreadnoughts over on the left. He's got the Hulks, or whatever they're called now, the Brutes. He's got one of the Vermin Legionnaires. He's got his Stalkers are waiting to ambush out of the tunnels. He's got his Dictator right there behind the Impassable, unsurprising. He's got the Legionnaire unit with the Bell, and then he's got the 2 units of Giselles, the 2 Moss rifles, the big Praetorian unit, and then another Vermin Legionnaire unit. And we were playing secure target. And mine is that kind of big black token there in front of the Impassable, and his is I think it's a little confusing because he's got tunnel markers. I think it must be that red one.
Yeah, these green ones are his
greenish things are the tunnel markers. Yeah. Exactly. So, and then on my side, what I had, and I think he dropped for moved to the next one. Let me just double check.
Yeah, he dropped it first.
Yeah. Okay. So he dropped it first. So my counter deployment, obviously I wanted to use the hill to protect my, expensive flyer, hill and Impassable, to protect my expensive flyers. And I, my goal here with a drawish match against this kind of a list is to push the objective, right? So I was happy to put my, my secure token, in a place where he wouldn't be able to be, kind of consolidate the battle into one place, right? So
okay,
he put his as close as he could, but it's still kind of far away. I made it impossible to place it on the left-hand side anywhere, right? I didn't want him to be able to focus all of his bodies in one place, because that's what Vermin want to do. And then I've got my Reaver Chariots, my Huntsman Prince, one of my Sea Guard units with the Reavers and Archers behind, my other Sea Guard unit front, one of my Bull Throwers, the Phoenix behind him, my Nova Griff behind the hill, Grey Watchers behind the hill, another Bolt Thrower. I was, I had to think about thaumaturgy here, right? And not have them all in one place. And then I had the Lancers and another Phoenix over on the right. Basic concept was, at a minimum, he's going to need to leave one scoring unit over on the right-hand side to try to hold that objective. And I think one Legionnaire unit is not enough against a Flame Phoenix over the course of a game, right?
You think so?
Which means he'd have to, unsupported.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
He's got, no buffs, right? I can wake him a couple of times and I pull off a lot of bodies with one wake, right? Which means he's either shooting over there or...
Yeah.
So my thinking was, he's going to have to devote a lot of resources by me placing the Phoenix and a scoring unit over on that right-hand side. And they're relatively, I could potentially just leave them there all game and preserve their points as a backup plan, right?
Yep.
So relatively happy with I guess there must be a Bolt Thrower over on the left-hand side. It's a little bit out of screen for me, like in the bottom left corner.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
there is. It's there. The viewers can see it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's on my screen. It's not. I can't see it. But anyways, so yeah, this was it, and so then we can move on to his turn.
All right. So this is top of one.
Yeah. So not surprising. He's he's relatively tentative. He doesn't really need to engage. He sees me as outranging and kind of he outranges me, and he kind of wants me to make the first move, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of adjusts forward. Now he's allocated his his Praetorians and his Legionnaires to that objective on the right.
Yeah.
Which is his primary combat force, right? Which means I know he's not really pushing at me with that block, right? With its positioning. So relatively happy with that. I think his first turn shooting and magic, because I've basically counter deployed his shooting. He puts pretty much everything into that front green Sea Guard unit.
Yeah.
And peels off probably like 5 or 6, I believe. They were the main viable target. Yeah.
Makes sense. Next photo is bottom one.
Yeah. So I adjust, basically, keep everything out of arcs, out of shots. He does shoot, I think, cannons down at that Bolt Thrower down at the bottom, but only doesn't kill it. Just does like 1 wound. Yeah. I keep pretty much everything out of arc, out of target, and he does get that Bolt Thrower on the hill with a cannon. That's gone. Which is a little of a shame.
Oh, it was towed up on the hill. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, correct. So that's a bit of a shame. But the only option would have been to completely leave it out of cannon arc, which means it would not have been able to shoot very much.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So my main target this turn is those Dreadmills on the left. With those operational, I can't really advance. And it's, based on the positioning of that impassable and where his cannons are, there's a lot of free space for me to play kind of in that zone over up in front of my chariots. Mm-hmm. If I can just get those Dreadmills gone, right? I can pick up some points. I can start threatening the Dictator, make that impassable, a tough place for him to hide behind. So long story short, I focus all of my shooting, and I think I get one of them off this turn. The explosion from it getting destroyed. Doesn't really do much.
Okay.
I moved the Phoenix up on the right a little bit. You know, he has a little bit of room to play there without getting shot at by cannons. And I think that was about it for this turn.
Okay. This is bottom of 2, so this is a full turn later.
Yeah, so he moves up with his Giselles, and he puts quite a bit of, I think, magic mainly, and maybe a little bit of shooting into my Reaver chariots on the left hand side, and he doesn't manage to kill them.
Okay.
And based on their positioning, the way that he's moved, you know, it's pretty clear that he had expected to kill them. And I had an opportunity actually to chaff his, you know, both his hulks and his block up there with my Reaver chariot. So because of the positioning of the Reaver chariot, it's a front for the hulks, and they cannot get past it into the Phoenix.
Gotcha.
Right. So he also has no viable charges into the Phoenix there, and so I liked this positioning, you know, quite a bit, because I felt like it was, you know, an opportunity to kind of break out of that, you know, that corner and push forward. I want to come back to at the end of the battle a point that my opponent and I discussed at the end that I think I may have missed an opportunity here that he was a bit concerned about, but we can get back to that.
Okay.
I put my Grey Watchers up on the hill, and you can see I did lose my other bolt thrower, the one in the ruins, the prior turn.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of inevitable. But essentially, I put everything. So essentially, all my shooting and magic is focused on the Giselles this turn.
Yeah.
I did make a mistake. I thought that I would be able to pick out that alchemist or the technocrat or whatever he's called, the guy that's attached to the Giselles.
No, they're both standards.
Because he had a mismatched base, but he's the same
height
and size.
Type and height.
I cannot pick him out. Yeah. So that was a mistake on my part. I thought I would be able to, but either way, I turn all of my shooting, because this is why I took the Grey Watchers, right? If I can debuff the Giselles and deplete them, keep my Phoenix alive, all of a sudden this move has put me in a really good position. So I go after them. I actually do a decent amount of work. I do trigger the Grey Watcher Fey Miasma is basically an auto proc on a res 2 target, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I took it. So I do this, and I was feeling relatively okay about the result, because I think he had to stop Ice and Fire on the Giselles for obvious reasons, which allowed me to get off, I think, either or both Unity and the Hereditary. So I had some good defensive buffs off and was kind of ready for the following turn. So let's see where we go from here.
This is now top of 3. It looks like you took off only 3 Giselles back there.
Yeah.
One from the other unit.
So I did some work. I wish I'd done a little bit more, but you know, I think I also got Altered Sight debuff off on them as well. That's what that card is behind them. So they were, it's a sweet moment of having -2 to hit on the Giselles, which is nice. And so you can see the reaction. He does not charge, and I think he doesn't charge
into the chariot here.
No, he must have charged. He must have charged. It's a little while ago, but he must have charged. He pops up his little throwing weapon guys, and I'll be candid. When I was doing the math, I had not considered them, and they do really good on Phoenix.
They're good. So they're very good. Are they still poison AP 1?
No, they're strength 4 AP 2. Which is quite good against Phoenixes, with 20 shots. So that was a mistake on my part. I in my calculus, I was like, look, I'll do some work on the Jezzails. I'll debuff them heavily. There's no way they'd take off the Phoenix in one go, but I had forgotten those guys. But it's okay. We'll see what happens. And so then, so he pops up, and then he has a bit of a rough go against that Phoenix. I think he got a Hand of Heaven, but didn't do any wounds. And then the Jezzails and the little guys actually only managed to do 4 wounds, I believe, to the Phoenix. So they do not kill it, right?
Wow.
Which is a big deal. So then I think we can advance into the next one.
This is bottom of 3.
Yeah. So he does kill that Reaver Chariot, I guess.
Yeah.
And
but man,
so,
look how many missing Legionnaires there are.
Yeah. So this is I take my time out here because I think the fact that the Phoenix didn't die is a huge deal, right? And so there's a lot of different options that I have. In fact, where the Phoenix was, he could have charged into the Jezzails. Now, it was a long charge, but there's a few different things that he could have done, right? So I take my coach's time out here because basically this was an opportunity to either go very aggressive or a little bit more conservative, try to preserve the matchup rating. And so what I do is I wake that Legionnaire unit because I see them as the biggest threat, me holding that objective marker on the left, right? And so I wake that unit, and my number one priority this turn. Oh, you can also see he does take some damage from Trial and Terror wounds on his Jezzails last turn. That was the other thing that that my opponent was.
He took a lot of damage.
I think he took like 1 or 2 wounds on the right, and like 3 or 4 wounds on the left.
Yeah.
So then I have a couple of high priority items this turn. I need to get rid of those gutter runners, the Shadow First Stalkers. I need to try to press my advantage against the Jezzails because now they're really getting seriously depleted, and I need to heal the Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Because I've got, this is, I think I've gotten myself relatively well positioned for the objective and picking up some points on the left. So I bring my mage back. I'm relatively happy with the status quo on the right, although you see he's now turned that Legionnaire unit and started heading it towards the center of the board.
Yeah, heading over here, yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. So that's about that. So then if we go into the next picture,
top of 4. Whoa, this is okay, this is all right. Keep going.
Yeah, so I delete the Shadow First Stalkers, so happy to do that. I think it was at this turn that I got rid of the Dreadmill Chariot as well. I think he kind of pulled that out into the open, so finally got rid of that. But I do struggle. I think I fail a spell or something happens that means that I do not get much work done on the Jezzails. I think I just get the Grey Watcher debuff on the unit. That's that little purple token there. Yeah. And so that's a bit of a shame. I think I do heal a wound on the Phoenix, but with the Jezzails not more depleted, it becomes a little bit more challenging. You can also see he's throwing kind of like random extra shots into the Sea Guard, basically just trying to make my scoring units less robust for the late game score, right?
Yep.
So now we can go. So he mainly just adjusts. He's continuing to kind of move around a little bit towards the center, and that's about it. So I think we can move forward.
Bottom of 4.
Yeah. So I believe at this point he gets the Phoenix.
Phoenix is gone.
Again, I can't. Yeah, Phoenix is gone. And then he has what else has happened here? He gets a hand of heaven and one shots the Grey Watchers, which is kind of a shame. Now, to be fair, I think he had a couple of bad hand of heavens against the Phoenix, so I can't quite complain, but that is a shame. And what I've been focusing on now is really getting down that Legionnaire unit on the left, because I've got 3 scoring units on the left that I can push with, remembering I'm the one that has the last turn, so I can do that last turn push to win that objective. So I'm really, the points are even-ish at this stage, and so at this point I'm really focused on making sure that I push that objective.
Gotcha.
So moving forward,
but it looks like with the other Legionnaire unit, he turns it back to face the second token.
Yeah, and I can't remember. I don't think we discussed exactly why. Maybe it was because of the amount of work I'd been able to do on the left Legionnaires. He was feeling less confident in winning that one, so he was really focused on not losing or drawing the one on the right. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that may have been why. Anyways.
This is bottom of 5, a full turn later.
Yeah. So it was at this point that he took his coach's timeout before his turn 5. And I think basically the conclusion that they came to was that he could not win the objective any longer with the amount of work that I'd done to the Legionnaires. And so he withdraws that unit to try to preserve their points over on the left. And I had used those Reavers basically to chaff his Bell unit, which he ignored and turned away, right? So I was chaffing them because I was starting to make my move on the objective so that I'd be within march range with all 3 of my scoring units, right?
Yeah.
So I needed the Reavers to chaff to make sure that he didn't get a chance to do a big charge into them or something. And I'm focused on keeping my expensive pieces, the 2 princes alive. I do bring my Phoenix out on the right, and my thinking was I wanted to draw his attention. I needed that objective. This was one of the poorer plays I think that I made in this game. We'll talk about it at the end. But I felt, with the Giselles a bit reduced, that he could potentially survive and it could be interesting. But then we'll see what happens at the end here. So I'm focused on trying to pick up the points that I can and winning that objective on the left, so that we can draw it overall.
We can draw the secondary. Okay. Lastly, this is bottom of 6.
Yeah. So he, as you saw in the last one, doesn't go for the Reaver charge. I move all my shooting to try to take off that Legionnaire unit on the left. This is a, try to keep up with the alpha books moment. At one time, Giselles had reload so that they could not stand and shoot. Apparently, they lost that rule because my Phoenix actually survives the barrage in the center, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'll pick up some easy points with an auto charge into a unit of Giselles, and then he stand shoots and finishes them off.
Oh, jeez.
which was a real shame because look, that's the rule. I should have looked it up. But the Phoenix survived, would have been fine and not given up any points, could have just withdrawn. That would have been a smarter play. But you know what? Good to learn in a scrimmage before the actual game.
Makes sense.
That's why we play scrimmages. And anyways, long story short, I win the objective on the left-hand side. I do not actually manage to get all of the Legionnaires over on the left, and as a result of the Phoenix not making it into combat, I don't manage to get all of the Giselle points, which is a shame. So at the end of the game, I've lost both Phoenixes, the Grey Watchers, and 2 of my bolt throwers in exchange for the Dreadmill Chariots, half points on those Legionnaires, the Shadow First Stalkers, and I may have gotten.
Do you get half points
I
on?
I think I might have gotten the Engineer.
Oh yeah,
or
he's not
half
there.
points on the Giselles or something like that. I can't. Looks like he's gone. I can't quite remember. But long story short, I believe that it ends up being, I think it ends up being an 8-12. So draw objective. And while it's on a little bit on the lower end, the truth is that mistake with the Phoenix would have made this, I think, like a 9 or maybe even a 10. It was that close.
Yeah.
So relatively happy overall. Obviously, this is what you get. You really want to hit your rating, right? So I think that after talking to my opponent at the end of the game, he felt like he had a kind of a slight advantage on this one. So was happy that it's sort of overperformed against that. If you go back to that point where I made that move with the Phoenix,
right here.
So we talked about this, and he said, the thing I was most scared about was that you would bring out the other Phoenix this turn. So from his perspective, the fact that I gave him the option to go with the Giselles and everything and the Stalkers and all of that into that one Phoenix is something where I could have easily lost the Phoenix. Admittedly, I'd forgotten about the Stalkers, so that's fair.
Yeah.
I could have lost the Phoenix with no gain, and that I was a bit lucky, and he's right, that I was a bit lucky for the Phoenix to have survived that barrage. But if I had both, then the Giselles are in a lot of danger, right? And he can't focus on the one Phoenix necessarily.
Yeah.
So
he has to split up his shots.
So if you kind of envision the other Phoenix, basically where I put it out at the end of the game, kind of in that midfield there, out of arc of the Blood Furs, facing the Giselles. Now I do have to take 2 cannon shots, admittedly.
True.
But as it turns out, that Phoenix survived those cannon shots at the end of the game, right? So if I had a Phoenix sitting there in the middle, all of a sudden that's the Giselles gone, and the Phoenix is dominoed into the middle of his lines. That's actually a win condition right there, because then he can take off the cannons, right? I could even maybe win the objective in that scenario. So I think that's a much higher upside play, right? Where at the end of the day, the downside risk is that I lose the Phoenix, which I did in the end anyways.
Yeah,
right?
true.
So I think that would have been an interesting way to break the game open, because I had that opportunity with the Reaver Chariot able to chaff that Legionary unit. So anyways, long story short, interesting game. I think called it correctly, could have played it a little bit better, but ultimately not unhappy with the result. Could have been better.
Do you look back in this decision to take the Fire Phoenix on the left? This was the point you said you had a long charge into the Giselles. I don't think you can take that because of the
now that I know that they stand and shoot, I definitely can't. Yeah.
But you were thinking about it. But what you decided to do was move him back here.
Yeah.
Was there another move? Was there another go and flame? Because you did flame these guys, which did all that damage, which is fantastic.
And I think that was the right play for one reason, because I think it made it so that I could win that objective.
Yeah.
Because I think if that unit has another 20 bodies in it, he can push that unit up and withstand a round of fire and prevent me from winning that objective potentially. So I think that was actually, it sounds a little bit simplistic, but I think that was actually kind of his game-saving play there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So great game. Ended up with an 8. You are now at this point. Do you know your round? You knew your round 1 matchups in ETC. Your first round was against Canada.
Right. We knew our country matchup, but we didn't have the individual pairings. So that happens day out. Yeah.
Are you feeling confident about a matchup with Canada? How are you guys going into it? How are you feeling about your matchup with Canada?
We were feeling, I think, relatively confident. They have some they had some lists that were challenging for us. Their VC list was a very clear anti-elf list, and with 3 elves, that's a risk in the pairing process, obviously. But we felt like we had some good matchups against their stronger players, which is that comes into it too. I mean, when you face, you know, a team that has, you know, Furion and Scrub, you have to think about, you know, you have to think about player skill, right?
Yeah.
So we felt like we had some good matchups for their stronger players, and we were confident, you know, not like we didn't think we were going to crush them, but we were confident going into the matchup that we had some good plays. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it all turned out. That's the next one. Excited to get to it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. Please like and subscribe if you're watching. We'll be back next time with round 1 ETC. Till next time.
Thanks everybody. Take care. Bye.